They thought they were playing you, but they didn't realize you were the one who built the board they were playing on. Imagine this for a moment. Chosen one, a serpent slithers into your garden, confident and silent, believing it's the hunter. It moves through the shadows, unaware that every blade of grass bends to your awareness. Every breeze carries your intuition, and every hidden corner watches through your eyes. It believes it's clever, that it's in control. But by the time it strikes, it realizes the entire garden was never its battlefield, it was your design. That's exactly what happens when people try to manipulate a chosen one. They think they're testing your emotions, but they're really stepping into a lesson you've already mastered. This isn't arrogance. It's clarity born from experience. It's what happens when pain evolves into purpose, when betrayal transforms into discernment. Every wound you've healed became a sensor. Every heartbreak refined your radar. Every deception sharpened your spiritual sight. Studies in behavioral psychology might call it hyper-awareness, intuition, or pattern recognition. But in the spiritual realm, it's something far deeper. It's divine training. You don't just sense energy. You translate it. You don't just notice red flags. You decode them before they even exist. You aren't simply ahead of the game, you're the one who wrote its rules, in a language most people will never understand. That's why they underestimate you. That's why they misread your silence. They mistake your peace for weakness, not realizing it's strategy, forged in divine wisdom. So if you're hearing this right now, it's not by accident. Your spirit was meant to find this message, because deep down, you already know who you are. You already know that what they tried to use against you has become your greatest weapon. And if something inside you is stirring, if you feel that familiar pulse of recognition, then take a moment and breathe it in. Comment 777 below, not just as a gesture, but as a declaration that you're ready to remember what's always been within you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, not for the algorithm, but because every time you do, this message finds another soul who needs to wake up to their own power. You are part of something divine, something bigger than this screen, something that moves through you. Thank you, chosen one, for being part of this mission. Your presence here is not coincidence. It's confirmation. Now, let's return to the truth they never wanted you to remember. God's chosen ones. Are you really manipulating them or just triggering their shadows? They say you're manipulative. Chosen one. Cold. Calculating. Too intense. But deep down, they know that isn't true. You're not manipulating them, you're mirroring them. You are the reflection of everything they've buried, the truth they've avoided, the conscience they can't silence. You don't expose people by words. You expose them by presence. You simply exist, and their masks begin to crack. They hate you, not because you deceive, but because you reveal. What they see in you is the version of themselves they tried to bury. They sense that your spirit carries a higher vibration, one that holds them accountable to their own authenticity. And accountability terrifies those who are still running from the truth within themselves. Have you ever wondered why your silence speaks louder than their excuses? Why your peace seems to make others restless? It's because your spirit carries a light that exposes hidden things. For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, nor is anything secret that will not come to light. Luke 8:17. Your stillness becomes a sermon to their soul, a mirror that cannot lie. The energy you carry reminds them of the parts of themselves that crave redemption, but have been silenced by pride. And sometimes, that reflection burns more than any spoken rebuke. You don't need to point fingers when your very existence reveals the difference between illusion and truth. Imagine a thief walking into a temple, believing no one saw him take the gold, but the walls themselves begin to whisper his name. That's what your energy does. It echoes through silence. It awakens guilt. It pulls hidden motives out into the open. You don't confront. You don't accuse. Yet something in your vibration makes the dishonest tremble. Their tone shifts. Their eyes dart. Their spirit confesses before their lips ever do. And that's the mystery of divine light. It doesn't shout. It simply shines. Those who are pure feel comforted in it, while those who deceive feel exposed. Your spirit becomes the unseen courtroom where souls testify against themselves. And you wonder why people either love you or fear you. It's because light never negotiates with darkness. It simply enters, and darkness has no choice but to vanish. You carry that kind of light. A light that doesn't explain itself, doesn't demand approval, doesn't need to prove it's pure. It just is. Those who live in deception feel naked around you. They mistake discernment for control, truth for manipulation, reflection for attack. But you, chosen one, were never manipulating, you were revealing. Their guilt recognizes itself in your calm. Their shadow panics in your peace. Because your peace is not passive, it's powerful. It disarms deception without effort. You're not reacting to energy, you're realigning it. That's why they feel both drawn to and afraid of you. You hold up a mirror to their duality. Once, they mocked your sensitivity. They told you that you overthink, that you read too much into things, that you feel too deeply. They didn't realize that your sensitivity was your spiritual training. Every betrayal refined your intuition. Every silence sharpened your perception. Every heartbreak became divine education. What they called weakness was actually initiation, a sacred shaping of your spirit until it could sense what eyes couldn't see. You weren't cursed with feeling too much. You were blessed with perceiving too soon. Those tears that once embarrassed you were the water that softened your heart enough to receive divine insight. Your pain was not punishment, it was preparation. Through it, God taught you how to recognize truth without needing proof. The spiritual person judges all things, but is himself to be judged by no one. 1 Corinthians 2:15. Now, you read energy faster than you hear words. You recognize who's real and who's pretending the moment they step into your atmosphere. Those with pure hearts feel safe in your presence. Those with hidden agendas feel exposed. That is not arrogance, that's alignment. Your spirit speaks a language of truth, and not everyone is ready to listen. To some, your discernment feels like a threat. To others, it feels like home. But either way, your gift reveals who people are before they can hide it. That's what makes your light so rare. It's not performative, it's prophetic. Even history's great souls carried this mirror energy. Jesus walked among hypocrites and exposed hearts without accusation. Socrates asked questions that made men tremble before their own reasoning. Malcolm X spoke with such clarity that even his allies grew uneasy. The light has always provoked the shadows, not out of cruelty, but because exposure is its nature. It's not your job to make people comfortable in darkness, it's your purpose to bring awareness. Every generation has souls like you, ones who make the unseen visible and the silent speak. You are not here to condemn, you are here to awaken. And perhaps you've asked yourself in the quiet of your spirit, why does my presence always seem to stir something in others? The answer is simple, because the Holy Spirit within you carries truth, and truth demands transformation. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:4. When you walk into a space, frequencies shift, pretenses break, masks feel heavier. It's not because you're doing anything wrong, it's because your spirit reminds others of who they were before the world taught them to pretend. You don't just enter rooms, you cleanse them. You don't just see people, you unmask them. That's the quiet authority of divine presence. So when they call you manipulative, remember what they're really saying. You see me too clearly, and it terrifies me. You don't need to defend yourself. Mirrors don't chase reflections, they simply stand still and let truth unfold. That's why people distance themselves once they realize you can't be deceived. They aren't avoiding you, they're avoiding the confrontation with themselves. Their discomfort is not your cue to shrink, it's your confirmation that your light is working. The spirit of truth within you disrupts false harmony. But in doing so, it plants seeds of real transformation. You are not divisive, you are discerning. Chosen one. Do not dim your light just to make liars comfortable. Your authenticity will always feel like aggression to those who depend on illusion. They'll twist your silence into guilt, your calm into arrogance, your truth into manipulation, because the light you carry exposes what they worked so hard to hide. But remember this, when you stop playing their games, they call you the problem. You were never playing, you were perceiving, you were learning, you were becoming the mirror they could no longer fool. You don't owe anyone comfort at the cost of your calling. You were not chosen to please, you were chosen to pierce through deception with grace. Every awakened soul has faced this misunderstanding. They were called cold, cruel, arrogant, not because they lacked compassion, but because people confuse clarity with cruelty. Yet you know better. Seeing through someone isn't judgment, it's discernment. It's spiritual sight. For the Word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit. Hebrews 4:10. The clarity in you is a blade of light, cutting through layers of illusion until only truth remains. And yes, sometimes truth hurts, but it's the kind of pain that cleanses, not the kind that kills. You are a reminder that healing often begins with exposure. So, let them talk. Let them twist your story. They're only describing themselves through your reflection. You've become a confession booth for the world, and you never even asked for that role. You are proof that divine perception can dwell in human form. You are emotional mastery disguised as peace. Every time they accuse you, they unknowingly confirm your discernment. You don't need to fight lies. The truth carries its own defense. Have you ever felt weary from seeing too much, knowing too deeply, sensing too early? That's not a curse, it's confirmation. The clarity you carry is evidence of your calling. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Even when you feel misunderstood, heaven understands you. Even when the world rejects you, the divine applauds your obedience. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand apart. You are not here to fit their narrative. You are here to embody truth until the narrative changes. Keep reflecting, keep discerning, keep walking in truth. Because the moment you dim your light to make others feel safe, their shadows win. Let them call you manipulative if they must. The truth is, you never manipulated anyone. You simply showed them the parts of themselves they weren't ready to face. And that isn't control, it's divine exposure. You are not the problem. You are the mirror. And the mirror never lies. They told you everything you wanted to hear. Chosen one. But your soul heard what their lips refused to say, and that's what saved you. They thought their words could wrap your intuition in ribbons of deception. They dressed up their intentions with sugar-coated sentences, carefully chosen compliments, and the perfect tone of voice. But what they didn't realize is that your spirit was never listening to their mouth. It was listening to their energy. And energy never lies. Their language may have been polished, but their vibration trembled. Their smiles sparkled, but their spirit flinched. Your discernment caught what their charm tried to hide. Have you ever wondered why you can't be fooled by sweet talk? No matter how beautiful the words sound, it's because you were born to read energy, not syllables. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Achat Samuel 6, 10. The same God who reads hearts has placed that sight within you. While the world worships words, you worship truth. And truth speaks in frequency, not in phrases. You have always been sensitive to the quiet pulse beneath the noise, the unseen rhythm where intentions live and lies die. Words, chosen one, are the cheapest currency in a world drowning in emotional debt. Anybody can say, "I love you," "I've changed," or "You can trust me." But you've learned that words are rehearsed, energy is real. The vibration behind the sentence is pure, untampered data from the soul. That's the language only the awakened can read. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Matthew 6:34. Yet your gift goes deeper than the mouth. It decodes the heartbeat. You sense tone before tone exists. You feel the fracture behind the flattery. You can taste sincerity the way others taste sweetness. Now imagine this. Someone stands before you, smiling, saying all the right things, making promises that glitter like gold. But as they speak, your pulse shifts, your chest tightens, your gut whispers, "Something's off." That's not paranoia, that's perception. That's your spiritual antenna tuned into frequencies their lips can't fake. That's your divine radar, intercepting the truth before logic can catch up. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. Achat John 4:1. You are not guessing, you are receiving. Every physical reaction you feel is divine intelligence, a spiritual code sent to protect your peace. People like to mock intuition because it threatens the illusion of control. Yet even science, yes, science admits that the body responds to truth and deception before the mind processes it. Your nervous system, chosen one, has been forged by experience and sanctified by pain. You've walked through betrayal, so your spirit learned to scan before it trusts. You had to read tone to survive. You had to detect motive in silence. Have you noticed how you can feel tension even in laughter? Or envy hiding in applause? That's not a flaw, it's foresight. It's the wisdom that pain carved into your spiritual DNA. While others get lost in speeches and performance, you listen to what's being suppressed. That's what unsettles people about you. They can't hide behind charm when standing in your frequency. It's not because you're judgmental. It's because you're tuned in. You walk into a room and you don't just feel the vibe, you read it. You sense when flattery is laced with resentment, when silence is filled with rage, when presence carries unspoken guilt. You live in the realm of energetic truth, the space between the words, where God himself whispers what others try to conceal. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. You've probably seen it happen. Someone backs away after one conversation, not because you offended them, but because your eyes looked into theirs too long. You heard what they didn't want to say. You felt the fear behind their confidence, the jealousy behind their praise, the guilt behind their explanations. You saw intentions wrapped in kindness, but your spirit read the fine print. That's why you're misunderstood. Because in a world that idolizes illusion, you threaten the very foundation of deception. You are the reminder that the unseen cannot be hidden from divine perception. And this gift, this ability to read beyond words, has been with you since childhood. You could feel when someone disliked you, even when they smiled in your face. You could sense when someone competed with you silently, when their laughter was lined with envy. As you grew older, you realized this wasn't just intuition, it was revelation. It was the same discernment prophets carried, the ability to hear truth in silence. Your heart became a sanctuary of spiritual intelligence, tuned to the language of the unseen. And with that gift came both wisdom and weight. Think about it. Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But they will never forget how you made them feel." That's because energy leaves an imprint words can't erase. Tupac could read energy. It showed in the depth of his eyes whenever he spoke of loyalty and betrayal. Even Princess Diana, called emotional and unpredictable by many, felt the chill in rooms that looked picture perfect. These souls weren't too emotional. They were energetically awake. Like you, they carried a frequency of truth that the world wasn't ready to receive. But this awareness comes with a price. You've sat through conversations pretending not to notice the shift in tone. You've smiled politely, knowing the person in front of you was envious of your peace. You've listened to apologies that sounded right but felt hollow, compliments that came with thorns, promises that trembled under your intuition. You stayed quiet, not because you were fooled, but because you were protecting your spirit. Silence became your shield, while your discernment did the work of revelation. Have you ever stayed quiet just to see how truth unfolds on its own? That's the art of divine restraint, wisdom disguised as stillness. This is the secret battle of the chosen one, navigating a world of noise while living from the stillness of knowing. You were built this way because your purpose depends on perception. You're not here to be seduced by charm or distracted by performance. You're here to see what others pretend not to notice, to hear what others drown out with noise. Your mission is to pierce illusion with awareness and bring light where language fails. You don't just read energy, you translate it into understanding. And through your example, others begin to recognize the signals of their own souls. That's why people respond to you the way they do. Some are drawn to you because your presence activates their own intuition. Others are afraid of you because they can't hide. And many are confused because they feel exposed but don't understand why. They gossip. They twist stories. They call you manipulative. But what they really mean is, "I couldn't perform around you, and it unsettled me." They say you twist words. But what they mean is, "You heard what I tried to bury." The tref designed, let them talk. Let them misunderstand. You don't need to explain your gift to those who fear it. You don't need to dull your discernment to soothe fragile egos. The same way the sun doesn't apologize for shining, you don't apologize for seeing. Remember, chosen one, your intuition is not suspicion, it's salvation. It's the divine technology God placed within you to navigate deception with grace. When they try to make you question your gift, remind yourself of this. They may have spoken with confidence, but you walked away with truth. The Spirit of truth will guide you into all truth. John 6:3. Because your soul doesn't respond to tone, it responds to vibration. You were created to see the unseen, to hear the unspoken, to perceive the denied. So never doubt what you discern. Your gift is sacred. Your awareness is divine. Your ability to read energy is not manipulation, it's prophecy. And while they polish their words and perfect their image, you'll keep walking in silence, knowing more than they'll ever admit. Because in the end, it's not what they say that reveals them, it's what your spirit feels. And that, chosen one, is why they can deceive the crowd, but never deceive you. For you are not moved by noise, but led by knowing, not fooled by charm, but guided by truth. And when others listen to words, you listen to God within you. You didn't lose. Chosen one, you just gave them the illusion of victory. You let them laugh. You let them celebrate. You let them believe they got away with something divine eyes had already recorded. Because some people can only learn truth through false triumphs. They needed to believe they'd beaten you in order to expose what truly ruled them: ego, envy, and illusion. But what they never realized, and still haven't, is that you allowed it. You weren't being naive. You were being strategic. Sometimes, divine wisdom hides behind quiet surrender. You let them feel in control, like they were 2 steps ahead, like they were winning some imaginary game of manipulation. But here's the part that cuts the deepest: you were never playing to win their game. You were there to reveal it. You pulled back, not because you were weak, but because your spirit knew that truth doesn't need to wrestle with deceit to win. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 5:13. You chose silence not out of fear, but out of mastery. Your quietness became a strategy. Your restraint became a revelation. In every moment, you didn't react. Heaven took note. And when you finally walked away, they mistook your exit for defeat. But what they couldn't see was that you were closing a karmic door, one that had trapped you in cycles of proving yourself to the blind. You didn't lose. Chosen one, you graduated. You outgrew the battlefield. You evolved beyond the noise. Have you ever felt the peace that follows when you no longer need to explain your truth? That's not emptiness, that's ascension. You didn't walk away because you couldn't win. You walked away because victory was beneath your purpose. Now, some of you may be thinking, why didn't I say more? Why didn't I defend myself when I had the chance? But the truth is, you never needed to. When you operate in divine timing, the universe itself becomes your defense. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 5:7. Your silence is not weakness, it's testimony. It gives room for heaven to speak where you were once tempted to shout. When they gossip, life corrects them. When they mock, time humbles them. Your stillness triggers their exposure. You see, not all battles are meant to be fought in the open. Some are spiritual. Some are fought in dreams, in patience, in the quiet places where your tears became your prayers. Some are won by letting the enemy think they've already won, right before their own actions undo them. That's what you mastered. You became both the mirror and the consequence wrapped in one. They thought your silence was surrender, but it was actually divine setup. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. 1 Corinthians 3:19. While they strategized in shadows, you waited in light, even in ancient warfare. Great tacticians like Sun Tzu said, "Appear weak when you are strong," and that's exactly what you did. You stepped back, not because you lacked a move, but because you were letting them march deeper into the web of their own pride. You let them build their tower of ego just to watch it collapse under its own lies. That's not revenge, that's balance. That's divine law in motion. What they built on deceit cannot stand on sacred ground. Your absence became their awakening. Have you ever watched a lie crumble without touching it? That's what divine justice looks like, invisible, inevitable, undeniable. Remember this. Chosen one, you never had to expose them. They exposed themselves. Your energy made their mask too heavy to carry. Your silence turned into sirens. Your distance became proof. That's why they're spiraling now, haunted by the echo of your discernment. They talk about you. They obsess. They bait you back into chaos, because deep down, they know you saw everything and still chose peace. And peace, to the guilty, feels like punishment. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. Psalm 37. So don't regret giving them comfort they didn't deserve. Don't regret letting them think they won. You were never competing with them, you were revealing them. It was never about revenge. It was always about the lesson. And in time, they'll realize that the moment they celebrated over you was the exact moment they lost something priceless. Access to you. You were never their opponent. You were their mirror. Their false victory became their divine exposure. Your loss was just heaven's disguise for liberation. Let the universe handle their ego. You stay focused on your purpose. Because the most dangerous person in any room is not the one who fights loudest, it's the one who fights last. And in silence, with truth and divine alignment. The Lord makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. Psalm 46. You carry that peace, the kind that disarms deceit without a word. You are no longer the player. You are the revelation. The world thought you stepped back, but you were actually stepping up. So, chosen one, never mourn what you let go. You didn't lose anything meant for your destiny. You only released what could no longer breathe in your light. Let them think they were winning because you were never after their crown. You were after your clarity, and that, more than victory, is freedom, the biggest trap you ever set. Chosen one was freedom. You didn't need to expose them, embarrass them, or retaliate. You just stepped back and let truth do its quiet work. Because you knew their own hands would tie the noose. You saw it all long before it unfolded. Every red flag, every subtle shift in tone, every micro-expression that revealed the story their words were hiding. You felt it when their energy changed, when their spirit betrayed their smile. You clocked the fake laugh, the forced empathy, the practiced sincerity, and still, you stayed quiet, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because the wise don't interrupt a fool writing their own downfall. You could have called them out. You could have exposed the lie in a single sentence. You could have held a mirror so sharp it would have cut straight through their performance. But you didn't. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Proverbs 26:4. You stayed silent because you understood divine law. Every word spoken against you carries its own consequence. and every deceit has an expiration date. So you let them perform. You let them move how they wanted to move, knowing that their actions were already digging their own pit. The trap was never yours to build, it was theirs to fall into. That's the thing about being chosen. You don't chase revenge, you trust revelation. You don't plot against people, you release them into the classroom of consequence. Have you noticed that the truth always finds its way back? Even when you stay silent, you gave them enough rope, and their ego did the rest. Their pride tightened every knot. Their lies became the scaffold. And when the tower of deception collapsed, it wasn't your doing, it was their own gravity pulling them down. You didn't win through battle, you won through stillness. You let karma wear the crown. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6-7. You stood there, watching the story unfold in perfect divine timing, not with hatred, but with closure. You didn't need to clap back, because heaven was already responding on your behalf. Have you ever felt peace while justice happened without your hands lifting a finger? That's divine order. They laughed. They gloated. They bragged unaware that their own words were becoming the rope. You didn't lose composure. You didn't lose sleep. You just observed as the same energy they used against you came back dressed as their own lesson. When God said, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay," Romans 12:19, he meant exactly that. Now, some of you may ask, why did I let it go so far? Why didn't I stop it sooner? But understand this, some people cannot learn by hearing the truth. They must feel it. They wouldn't have believed you if you warned them. They had to touch the fire to understand the burn. You saw the betrayal coming. But instead of stopping it, you allowed it to unfold, not because you were careless, but because you were confident in divine justice. Some lessons don't stick until they come with scars. You weren't abandoning them, you were allowing them to meet themselves. They thought your grace was naivety. Your mercy was weakness. Your forgiveness was foolishness. But what they failed to realize was that you were letting them reveal themselves. Word by word. Action by action. You weren't ignoring the red flags, you were filing them away in your spiritual archive. Every detail recorded in your intuition's courtroom. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. Proverbs 15:3. So when the time came to walk away, you didn't owe anyone an explanation. Your silence was your evidence. Your peace was your proof. Your distance was your divine documentation. And when you finally left, chosen one, you didn't slam the door, you simply disappeared. No explosion, no argument, no announcement. You just vanished. And that absence became their mirror. That's the punishment, not your anger, but your absence. Your silence echoed louder than confrontation ever could. They replayed every moment in their mind, haunted not just by what they did, but by how gently you let them do it. You didn't curse them, you simply removed your light. And darkness filled the space they took for granted. That's divine justice in its purest form, quiet, precise, and irreversible. Even the universe had your back. It watched. It recorded. It synchronized every hidden crack to widen at the perfect time. You didn't rush karma, you respected its rhythm. You trusted that what's built on deception cannot stand forever. Have you ever noticed that truth never runs, it waits? Because truth knows time is its ally. You allowed the storm to arrive naturally. That wasn't weakness. That was wisdom. And when the dust settled, the only thing standing was your integrity untouched, unwavering. undeniable. So never doubt yourself again. Chosen one. You were never a victim of deception. You were the witness to its self-destruction. You let them think they had control because you already knew the outcome. You let them play you, knowing full well they were rehearsing their own undoing. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. That's divine alignment. You gave them rope, they built the gallows, and now they hang not by your hand, but by their own choices. Your story isn't about what they lost, it's about what you gained by letting go. You gained wisdom, you gained peace, you gained the sacred ability to walk away without bitterness. Let them remember your absence as the lesson that finally humbled them. You are not their punishment, you are their awakening. For we know him who said, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay." Hebrews 10:30. And that's exactly what God did. He repaid you with clarity, and them with consequence. So stand tall in your peace. Chosen one, don't look back at the rope they wasted. Walk forward with grace. For the same silence that once protected you will now promote you. Their downfall was never your destination. Your destiny is still ahead. Radiant and untouchable. You didn't need to destroy them. The truth did. You only needed to stay still long enough to watch the divine unfold. They thought you were easy to use. Chosen one, they mistook your softness for submission, your empathy for emptiness, your kindness for weakness. They saw your open heart and thought it was a doorway, but it was really a test. And they failed it spectacularly. They thought they were playing you, not realizing they were exposing themselves. What they didn't see is that behind your compassion stands a warrior spirit, ancient and alert, wrapped in silence that watches everything. The Lord will give strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. Psalm 20:11. They thought you were easy to manipulate, easy to impress, easy to conquer. They saw the way you loved with sincerity, how you gave without expectation, and they confused purity with passivity. You led with heart instead of ego, and they mistook that for naivety. They wore masks and played games, but you came bearing truth. You offered authenticity in a counterfeit world. Have you ever wondered why your love scares the unready? Because real love is light, and light burns those who dwell in pretense. They didn't want to grow, they wanted to take, and they thought your light was theirs to drain. They thought your love was something to use, not something to earn. They mistook your generosity for invitation, your openness for permission. But beneath that gentle exterior lives a soul forged in fire. Every heartbreak became your training ground. Every betrayal was your initiation into spiritual discernment. You're not fragile, you're refined. You're not naive, you're seasoned in spiritual warfare. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Psalm 20:7. They never realized that by trying to take from you, they were stepping into a divine test. You were never prey. You were the revelation disguised as peace. They came for your body, but your spirit was guarded. They came for your energy, but your ancestors were standing watch. They thought they could feast on your soul, not knowing you were chosen, protected by a light they couldn't comprehend. You weren't just another person to play with. You were the test they didn't study for, the exam they couldn't cheat on. And now, the lesson has struck them like thunder. The same hands that tried to drain you now tremble under the weight of their own emptiness. Touch not my anointed ones. Do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105:5. You see, when you are chosen, Your light attracts both lovers and leeches. It draws the hungry and the holy, the narcissists, the manipulators, the shapeshifters. They all come dressed as answers to your prayers, fluent in your emotional language, performing love they've never truly known. But your intuition, your sacred armor, always sees through the disguise. Even when your mind doubts, your spirit discerns. That unease you feel around people everyone else trusts, that's not paranoia, that's prophecy. Have you ever walked away from someone who looked perfect, yet felt poisonous? That's the Holy Spirit whispering, "This is not your tribe." Well, they thought they had you. I thought you were hooked. In love, dependent, vulnerable. But just when they thought you were trapped, you showed them what divine detachment looks like. You didn't explode, you exited. You didn't curse them, you released them. You cut the cord so quietly that the echo of your absence rang louder than any confrontation ever could. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. Isaiah 5:19. Your peace became their panic. Your silence became their judgment. Your calm became their conviction. They thought you'd fight for them, but you didn't. You fought for yourself. You fought for your purpose, for your alignment, for your soul. You realized you were never supposed to prove your worth to people blind to their own. You saw that your compassion was sacred currency, not to be spent on counterfeit hearts. They tried to misuse something holy, and the universe took notes. That same energy they tried to steal became the fire that now purifies them through loss. They didn't lose you by accident, they lost you by design. Have you noticed how peace always follows pain when you choose yourself? That's divine justice, rebalancing the scales. You were never meant to be used, you were meant to awaken. And awakening rarely feels gentle. Sometimes your departure is the only sermon some people will ever hear. You weren't punishing them by leaving, you were liberating them from their delusion. You were teaching them that divine love cannot be manipulated. That softness does not mean surrender. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Psalm 40:5. Let this truth settle in your heart. You weren't easy, you were open. They mistook access for entitlement. And in doing so, they failed the divine test of humility. Spiritual armor doesn't clank or shine. It lives in your boundaries, in your stillness, in the way you no longer chase validation. Your power is quiet, steady, and unshakable. Now they realize you weren't just a kind soul, you were sacred territory. They thought they were walking into a playground, but they were stepping onto holy ground. You're not broken, you're consecrated. You're not naive, you're chosen. And what walks with divine purpose cannot be touched by manipulation. Onward, chosen one. You are covered, you are protected. You are guided by forces unseen and loved by heaven itself. Let them remember your gentleness as the lesson that changed them. You don't need revenge. Your existence is their revelation. Keep walking in purpose, because those who tried to use you have only confirmed your anointing. They can't touch what moves with God. They didn't meet you by chance. Chosen one, you were not a random encounter, not a coincidence, not a passing face in their story. You were the divine interruption sent to reveal what they had been hiding from themselves. You weren't punishment, you were purpose. They were sent your way to be tested, and they failed, not because you cursed them, but because they couldn't fake authenticity in front of someone born of it. They could pretend with everyone else, but not with you. You were too real, too clear, too connected. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. You weren't just another person in their timeline. You were the checkpoint, the mirror, the karmic lesson wrapped in human skin. They thought you were a blessing they could use, a source of warmth they could drain, a soul they could bend to their will. But you weren't sent to be consumed, you were sent to reveal. Your very presence became the test that exposed whether or not they had truly evolved past their patterns. Spoiler alert, they hadn't. By their fruits you shall know them. Matthew 7:10. You showed them what love without games looked like, and they mistook it for weakness. You showed them what truth felt like, and they ran back to lies because truth felt too heavy. They didn't recognize the gravity of your presence because they only saw what they could get from you, not who you were. They failed to realize that you weren't just light, you were a revelation. Your energy was never neutral, it was activating. You didn't expose them by calling them out, you exposed them by existing. The moment your frequency entered their life, their hidden wounds started to surface. The masks cracked, the pretenses faltered. Have you ever noticed how the wrong people get nervous in your peace? That's not coincidence, it's conviction. You are the mirror that reflects what can no longer hide. That's why they turned against you. Not because you harmed them, but because your truth held them accountable. You didn't judge them, you simply saw them. And for souls still ruled by ego, being truly seen feels like attack. They could fool the world, but they couldn't fool your discernment. And when the performance fell apart, so did their pride. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. You didn't expose them with words, your presence did the work. That's the power of divine light. It doesn't argue. It simply reveals. People rarely understand this, but the universe sends certain souls into our lives as divine checkpoints to test our integrity, our readiness, our alignment. And you, chosen one, have been that test for many. You were the one who offered love without expectation and watched it be mishandled. The one who gave loyalty and received betrayal. The one who extended forgiveness to people who weren't ready to heal. You were never being punished, you were being positioned. Because your energy reveals hearts, the way sunlight reveals dust gently but completely. Have you ever asked why the people you love most often hurt you first? It's because your light demands honesty, and not everyone can stand under that glare. You were the doorway to elevation, but they refused to walk through. You offered transformation, but they clung to familiarity. They were comfortable in cycles, addicted to pain, allergic to accountability. And when faced with the mirror of your love, they chose comfort over growth, ego over awakening. But that's not your burden to carry. You didn't come to fix them, you came to reveal them to themselves. The truth will set you free. John 8:32. You were the divine opportunity for their evolution, and when they rejected it, the test closed, the window shut, the lesson moved on. Just because you were the test doesn't mean you were disposable. You were a divine assignment cloaked in compassion. You were heaven's invitation to their transformation. And now that they've fumbled your presence, the echo of that mistake will follow them. They'll meet others who remind them of you, but it will never feel the same. They'll chase energy that can't be replicated. Doors will close. Paths will narrow, not out of spite, but out of divine correction. Because every soul that mishandles sacred connection must face the silence of separation. That's not revenge. That's universal alignment. Some of you may ask, why does it still hurt when I know I was just the test? Because you loved them. You cared. You hoped they would choose the light you offered. But being the test doesn't mean you were replaceable. It means you were necessary. Without you, their truth would have stayed buried. Without you, they never would have met the mirror. For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. Hebrews 10:6. You were the vessel through which God gave them a chance to change. What they did with that opportunity was their choice and their consequence. You don't belong in the shadows of other people's unfinished healing. You belong where growth is mutual, not one-sided. So let them think they got away with it. Let them believe you were just a phase, just another person, because the truth is, you were the divine moment they were given to evolve, and they chose ego over elevation. And that moment doesn't come twice. Lessons ignored in love always return as pain. You are not their enemy. Chosen one, you are their mirror, their awakening, their missed redemption. Walk in peace. The test is over, and you passed. They didn't. But remember this, your purpose was never to punish, only to present the truth. And truth, no matter how rejected, never dies. It only waits. It waits for the next moment, the next soul, the next encounter where it can bloom again through you. So keep walking in your light. Chosen one, the test may be over, but your mission is not. Your presence still has work to do, because where you walk, heaven teaches. They see the strength. Chosen one, but they never saw the breaking that built it. They see the fire in your eyes, but not the ashes that came before it. You didn't become this sharp, this discerning, this spiritually alert because life was kind to you. You became this way because life forced you to awaken. You were pushed into mastery by heartbreak, trained through betrayal, baptized in loneliness. But he knows the way that I take when he has tested me. I shall come forth as gold. Job 23:10. Every scar on your soul became a scripture. Every tear became a teacher. You didn't rise because it was easy. You rose because there was no other way. You learned to read energy because words lied to you. You learned to detach with dignity because begging for love drained you. You learned to walk away in silence because screaming your truth fell on deaf ears. Your strength wasn't born from ego, it was born from survival. Have you ever realized that the version of you now is the prayer of the old you who refused to die in heartbreak? That awareness, that discernment, that quiet control. It's not manipulation. It's mastery earned through pain that didn't destroy you, but refined you. People look at you now and call you cold, distant, detached. They see your boundaries and call it arrogance. But where were they when you gave your whole heart only to watch it get shattered? Where were they when you poured loyalty into people who saw you as convenience? They weren't there when your kindness was exploited and your compassion was mocked. Yet they're the first to label the healed you as heartless. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:10. They don't understand that every layer of armor you wear was earned. You didn't choose the walls, you built them from the ruins. You didn't become wise because you wanted to, you became wise because the world left you no choice. You learned to see through apologies that came with no change. You learned to recognize manipulation in politeness, deceit in flattery, and emptiness in charm. You learned to listen to tone, not talk to patterns, not promises. Be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Matthew 10:10. You mastered emotional intelligence not to control others, but to protect the peace that took you years to rebuild. Every boundary you set is a memorial to the moments that broke you. And now you ask yourself, does protecting my peace make me the villain? No. Chosen one. It makes you awake. You are not cold, you are clear. You are not detached, you are discerning. In a world that feeds on empaths and drains the generous, your ability to guard your energy is not a flaw, it's your inheritance. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. You didn't come here to be everyone's emotional refuge. You came to end generational patterns that confuse kindness with servitude. You are the reminder that compassion without wisdom becomes self-destruction. Let's be honest, some people needed a taste of their own game, not because you wanted revenge, but because your stillness became their mirror. You showed them what it feels like to be dismissed, to be underestimated, to be outmaneuvered by grace. You played it calm, you played it silent, but make no mistake, you were in control the entire time. That control wasn't born from ego, it was born from safety. Have you noticed how peace unsettles those who thrive on chaos? That's why they couldn't handle your silence. It exposed their noise. Even the most spiritually evolved souls walk this path. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, imprisoned by lies, yet elevated by God. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Genesis 50:20. Look at Oprah, once broken and abused, now embodying grace under pressure. Look at Robin Williams, who turned pain into laughter to heal others while fighting invisible storms of his own. Great souls turn pain into purpose. And you are no different. The world doesn't repay kindness, it tests it. But you flipped the script. They tried to read you, but your energy became encrypted. They tried to manipulate, but your discernment disarmed every attempt. They don't even realize that the version of you they met was already the healed version. Imagine if they had met the unguarded you. Imagine how much more they would have taken if you hadn't learned. You are not deceptive, you are divine. You are not manipulative, you are masterful. You became fluent in silence, fluent in boundaries, fluent in peace. You learned when to speak and when to observe, when to stay and when to disappear. That is spiritual intelligence, the kind the world mistakes for indifference. But heaven recognizes as wisdom. So if they call you cold, let them. If they call you distant, let them. Those who've walked through fire will always be misunderstood by those who've only known comfort. You didn't build walls to keep love out, you built them to keep yourself whole. And those who are meant for you will never be intimidated by your strength. They'll recognize it as sacred. You are not hard, you are holy. You are not bitter, you are balanced. Have you noticed how your peace now feels like power? That's what happens when pain graduates into purpose. Your pain was never wasted. Chosen one. It was alchemy, a divine transformation of suffering into sight. You are not broken, you are reborn. You are the soul that sees everything, yet still chooses compassion. You are the heart that has bled but refuses to close. You didn't just survive, you became sacred through survival. You turned storms into stillness and wounds into wisdom. You are the master of your emotions, the guardian of your light, and the evidence that even shattered glass can still reflect the sun. So, stand tall in your mastery. The storm hasn't ended, it has just cleared the path. Keep walking, chosen one. You no longer move to be understood, you move to be aligned. The ones who once broke you will one day look back and realize you were never the victim of the fire. You were the fire, and the fire never loses. People are whispering, "Chosen one," but they don't know the half. They whisper your name like it's a curse. Yet deep down, they know it's a warning. They speak of you with fascination and fear, trying to decode your silence, trying to rewrite your story because your disappearance left a void too loud to ignore. They're confused, obsessed, watching your every move, dissecting your absence, creating stories to fill in the blanks. But the truth is, you've become a mystery they can't solve. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 50:4. You're no longer a person in their narrative. You're the unexplainable chapter that keeps haunting their thoughts. You left quietly, but your energy never did. You disappeared, detached, vanished from their reach. Yet your presence still lingers like holy residue. They feel you when they lie about you. They sense you when they think of you. That pull in their chest, that unease when your name comes up, that's not coincidence. That's spiritual gravity. You don't have to haunt anyone. Truth does the haunting for you. Have you ever wondered why your silence echoes louder than their gossip? It's because your absence carries divine weight. When light leaves, darkness notices. When anointed energy withdraws, the air shifts. That's spiritual law, not revenge. They whisper, they speculate, they rewrite your story because they were never given closure. But closure was never theirs to hold, it was yours to claim. They don't know what you survived, what you overcame, what you battled when no one was watching. They don't know the nights you cried yourself empty and rose again with a smile they didn't deserve to see. They don't know the prayers that built your peace or the angels that guarded your silence. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. You didn't lose your fire, you mastered it. You learned to control what once consumed you. And now that calm power terrifies them. That's the thing about being chosen. The more silent you become, the louder your presence feels. You could be miles away, and yet your energy presses against their conscience like invisible truth. They still feel the absence of your prayers, your light, your grounding energy. Because when someone mishandles a divine soul, they don't just lose a person, they lose access to divine favor. Your departure wasn't punishment. It was permission for karma to step in. Have you noticed how your peace unsettles the ones who betrayed you? That's what happens when God removes you from what was meant to drain you. Some of you are asking, why are they still watching if I've moved on? Because people are addicted to what they don't understand. You became unpredictable, unreachable, unreadable. You broke the cycle they depended on to feed their ego. Manipulators thrive on reaction, and you took that away. You stopped explaining. You stopped chasing. You stopped defending yourself. And in that silence, their power collapsed. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 5:13. You didn't have to prove innocence. Your peace became your evidence. Mystery became your protection. They were used to controlling narratives, pulling strings, setting traps. But when you vanished with dignity, their ego starved for closure. Mystery is your shield now. It keeps your energy sealed, your future hidden, your purpose safe. When they can't read you, they can't ruin you. When they don't know what's coming, they can't block it. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. That's where you live now, in the unseen, in the untouchable. You don't overshare. You don't explain. You don't correct lies. You've learned that silence is the most eloquent truth. The less you say, the more they wonder. What does the chosen one know that we don't? They whisper. They see the glow up. They feel the shift. They sense the transformation, and it unsettles them, because they expected you to stay broken, to stay small, to stay quiet in defeat. But instead, you healed in silence and returned, wrapped in a frequency they can't replicate. Have you ever noticed how healed energy makes the unhealed uncomfortable? That's not pride, that's divine contrast. You didn't come back to prove them wrong, you came back as proof that grace always wins. Even legends understood this. Look at Prince Mysterious. Private, yet his presence never faded. Look at Lauryn Hill, withdrawn from the spotlight, but her influence timeless. Mystery isn't absence, it's amplification. It forces the world to focus on essence, not performance. You don't owe visibility, you owe yourself peace. And peace thrives in silence. The unseen is where God does his best work. You're not here to be understood, you're here to be felt. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them fill in the blanks with their assumptions. They'll never know the half because they were never meant to. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs 16:7. You are walking proof that divine privacy is divine power. The less they know, the more heaven can move. You are no longer a story to be explained, you are a mystery to be remembered. And the truth is, they don't even know the half. They never will. So keep moving. Chosen one. Keep glowing in silence. Keep walking in divine mystery. Because what they can't define, they can't destroy. You didn't break them. Chosen one. You awakened them. And awakening hurts when you've lived your whole life asleep. They'll never admit it, not to you, not to anyone, but your presence changed them. Not because you shouted, not because you demanded, not because you begged for better. You didn't say a word. You didn't need to. Your energy did the speaking. Your vibration did the teaching. Your spirit did the work. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. They called it manipulation, but it was activation. They felt your power and mistook it for control. They felt your truth and labeled it pressure. That's the language of the unawakened when faced with light. They interpret clarity as confrontation, but you weren't trying to change them. You were simply standing in truth. Have you ever noticed how your peace makes others question their chaos? That's the power of alignment. You didn't come to instruct, you came to embody. And embodiment always exposes what's out of tune. You simply showed up as you are healed, discerning, divine, and by doing so, you illuminated everything they weren't ready to face. Your presence didn't condemn them. It revealed them. It showed them where they were hiding behind charm, ego, performance. It showed them what authenticity feels like, raw, unfiltered, unwavering. For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. Mark 4:22. That's what your soul does. It doesn't argue with lies. It simply shines until the truth has nowhere left to hide. That's why they reacted the way they did. That's why they couldn't stay. Because your energy was too honest for their comfort. Imagine living your entire life in darkness, and suddenly someone walks in carrying light. Not a spotlight, just a soft, undeniable glow. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't shout. It simply is. But that glow makes the dust visible, the cracks undeniable, the shadows recognizable. That's what you did. You entered silently, and everything false trembled. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:4. You didn't even try to expose them. Your energy did that naturally. You didn't call out their deceit. Your discernment made their own words convict them. You didn't need to point out hypocrisy. Truth in your aura did it for you. Have you ever noticed that your silence unsettles people more than your words ever could? It's because your spirit holds a mirror that reflects without judgment. And that mirror doesn't lie. People don't run from you, they run from the version of themselves that your presence reveals. Many of them never expected to meet someone like you, someone who doesn't play games, someone who feels deeply, someone who loves with precision and speaks without filters. You were their first encounter with real. And real makes people nervous. Real makes people run. Because real demands reflection. And reflection demands change. You were never their punishment. You were their opportunity. You were the divine checkpoint in a life full of illusions. The Spirit of Truth will guide you into all truth. John 6:10. And that truth, your truth, will echo long after you're gone. Even now, they still think about you. Why? Because your energy was never ordinary. It didn't just touch the surface, it pierced the soul. You awakened something in them that can't be forgotten, can't be replicated, can't be replaced. They were sleepwalking through relationships, conversations, life itself, until you. They were performing, pretending, manipulating, until you. You didn't just walk into their world, you disrupted their illusion. And when illusion meets authenticity, illusion always shatters. Some of you still wonder, did I really make that much of a difference? Yes. Chosen one. You did. You were the divine catalyst. The spiritual alarm clock that rang when their soul had grown too numb to hear its own calling. You reminded them of what real connection feels like, terrifying, raw, alive, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Ephesians 5:14. They may resist it now, but deep down, something in them has shifted forever. You woke them up without a single word. You were the sermon they didn't know they needed, the lesson they didn't ask for, the truth they couldn't deny. And one day, maybe not now, maybe not soon, they'll realize that you weren't a storm that came to destroy. You were the dawn that came to awaken. You didn't break them. You blessed them with awareness. So, keep walking. Chosen one. Keep glowing quietly. Keep awakening what's asleep around you. Because that's what divine souls do. They don't preach. They provoke transformation. And if the world can't understand how you changed so many without ever raising your voice, that's because the loudest power of all is presence. They prayed for change. Chosen one, and God sent you. They asked for transformation, for a shift, for awakening. But they never imagined the answer would come in the form of a human being, you. You didn't walk in quietly. You came like the storm, fierce, undeniable, unpredictable. You shook everything they thought was secure. And while they begged heaven for healing, they didn't expect the medicine to look like truth. Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Mark 4:41. They thought they wanted new beginnings, until you showed them what rebirth truly demands, the end of who they used to be. You see, storms don't destroy, they reveal. You didn't come to bring chaos, you came to expose the foundations. They mistook your arrival for disruption when it was actually divine recalibration. Your energy didn't break things, it clarified them, and that scared them. Because when peace enters, anything false can't stand. When the whirlwind passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous has an everlasting foundation. Proverbs 10:25. You came not to harm, but to heal, and healing always looks violent to what resists it. Have you ever noticed how people call you too intense right before their lives start shifting? They don't realize it. But your presence carries change codes. You were the storm that pulled everything stagnant into motion, their emotions, their patterns, their truth. Your vibration rewrote the atmosphere. But what's wild is this: when the storm was over, when your lightning had done its work, you didn't stay thunder, you became stillness. And that's what confused them most. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. Psalm 127. You became calm, untouchable, unbothered, unmoved. You stopped reacting, and your silence became their storm. They weren't ready for peace that didn't chase, and for energy that didn't explain itself. That quiet confidence unnerved them, because some people can survive chaos, but they crumble in calm. Your stillness forced them to sit with their noise. Your peace became their mirror. Have you ever watched people tremble not because you shouted, but because you stopped responding? That's not arrogance, that's divine equilibrium. They prayed for a connection that would awaken them, but they didn't realize awakening hurts. They thought they wanted a blessing, but blessings that come from God often arrive wrapped in lessons. And you, chosen one, were both. Blessed is the one whom you discipline, Lord, the one you teach from your law. Psalm 94:10. You weren't the punishment, you were the preparation. You came to reset their vibration, to show them where they were asleep, to shake loose what wasn't aligned. They wanted your love, but not your mirror. They wanted your comfort, but not your truth. And that's why they couldn't stay. The same ones who prayed for light ran from the source when it finally showed up. You were both storm and calm, the divine paradox they couldn't comprehend. Your energy dismantled their illusions, then offered them peace, and both felt unbearable. You showed them the duality of real love. It breaks before it builds. It humbles before it heals. Have you ever realized that you weren't just their lesson, but their answered prayer misunderstood in motion? So now they tell stories. They twist the narrative. They call you dramatic, cold, unreachable. But what they'll never admit is that your energy changed the atmosphere of their life forever. After you, they can't go back to ordinary connections. After you, silence feels sacred. After you, peace feels powerful. They were never supposed to understand you. They were supposed to be transformed by you. You were the storm they prayed for, the wind that cleared their path, the thunder that woke their sleeping soul. And when your work was done, you became the calm they couldn't handle. Because calm is power. Calm is clarity. Calm is mastery. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. John 4:27. You didn't just leave peace behind, you became it. So let them remember you as chaos if they must. The awakened always look like disruption to the unready. But you know better. You weren't the storm that destroyed you, were the storm that delivered. You were the answer disguised as disturbance, the calm disguised as mystery. You were the divine shift that carried heaven's correction. Keep walking. Chosen one, don't apologize for your waves. You were never meant to be understood by those who fear transformation. You were meant to remind the world that sometimes God answers prayers not with comfort, but with a storm named you. You didn't lose them. Chosen one, you outgrew the lesson. They were never the ending, they were the education. Some souls were only meant to meet you long enough to teach you what love isn't, what loyalty shouldn't cost, and what peace truly feels like when it finally returns. You weren't abandoned, you were advanced. God didn't remove them to hurt you, He removed them to graduate you. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God. Romans 8:28. You think you lost someone, but heaven knows you shed a limitation. The truth is, not every connection is meant to be kept. Some are meant to catalyze. You loved deeply, forgave freely, believed boldly, and gave more than most would. That wasn't weakness, that was curriculum. You were in the classroom of character. Every disappointment was a divine download. Every heartbreak, a hidden initiation. Have you ever realized that every person who left taught you how to love yourself more completely? The people who rejected your light were simply revealing where your boundaries still needed building. They couldn't stay because they couldn't grow. They saw your expansion and called it distance. They saw your boundaries and called it ego. They saw your silence and mistook it for indifference. But what they didn't understand was that you were evolving. And evolution always looks like loss to those who refuse to move forward. No one pours new wine into old wineskins. Mark Steim, Esrim, Vishtaim. You were not abandoning them, you were outgrowing the vibration that no longer matched your destiny. You tried to hold on longer than you should have. You prayed, pleaded, and reasoned with the connection. You told yourself that love could fix it, that compassion could heal it, that loyalty could hold it together. But love cannot save what ego keeps destroying. Compassion cannot fix what manipulation keeps repeating. And loyalty to dysfunction is not virtue, it's self-abandonment. Have you ever felt guilty for outgrowing someone you once prayed for? Don't. Growth doesn't betray love, it proves it. You loved enough to learn, and now your spirit refuses to shrink back into patterns it's already mastered. They may think you walked away, but really, you rose away. You rose into clarity, into peace, into maturity. You stopped chasing closure because you realized closure doesn't come from them, it comes from understanding. You didn't lose them, you simply lost your attachment to being misunderstood, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal. Philippians 3:13-14. That's what you're doing now, pressing on. Not because you're heartless, but because you finally understand what wholeness costs. You see, endings are not failures for the chosen. They are transitions. People leave when their purpose in your story is complete. Some leave because their energy can't handle your new frequency. Others because their lesson for you has ended. Don't mourn that, honor it. Their departure was divine design, not personal rejection. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. Seasons don't apologize when they change, they just shift. So must you. You didn't lose love, you discovered real love within yourself. You didn't lose loyalty, you learned how to give it to the one person who always deserved it, you. You stopped auditioning for spaces that couldn't see your worth. You stopped negotiating your peace for temporary belonging. You stopped watering dead gardens hoping for new blooms. What you thought was the end of a connection was the beginning of your sovereignty. Have you noticed how peace began the moment you stopped trying to explain your value? That wasn't giving up, that was waking up. Now, when you look back, you see it differently. You see that every heartbreak was holy. Every rejection was redirection. Every goodbye was God saying, "It's time." You realize that not everyone who hurt you was evil. Some were just unevolved. They couldn't meet you where you were going. And that's okay. Because your path was never meant to stay crowded, it was meant to stay clear. So walk on. Chosen one. Not bitter, but blessed. You've passed the test. You've learned the lesson. And you've leveled up. The version of you that once tolerated chaos no longer exists. You are walking proof that healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering differently. You didn't lose them. You simply outgrew the storm. And the peace that followed is your reward. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Psalm 126. Keep moving. Keep evolving. Keep outgrowing what no longer aligns. Because what's waiting ahead isn't loss, it's legacy. You're not empty. Chosen one. You're enlightened. And so, chosen one, maybe now you understand you were never manipulating them. You were triggering them. You weren't twisting emotions or controlling outcomes. You were awakening what they tried to hide. Every time your truth collided with their comfort. Every time your silence made them uneasy. Every time your discernment felt like exposure, it wasn't control. It was conviction. Because light doesn't need to force darkness to flee, it simply shines. And what cannot survive its clarity naturally falls away. You didn't come to confuse them, you came to confront their illusion. That's what chosen ones do. We activate truth, not through argument, but through existence. You didn't break them, you didn't play them, you just revealed them. They weren't ready to meet someone who could see their spirit so clearly. They weren't prepared for a soul that didn't fall for words, but listened to energy instead. So they labeled you the problem. Because labeling is easier than facing reflection. In a world that rewards pretending, authenticity will always feel like threat. And when people live behind masks long enough, even love starts to look like manipulation. But you didn't change their story, you illuminated it. You showed them who they were beneath performance, beneath ego, beneath control. And that kind of revelation always feels like pain before it feels like freedom. Chosen one. Stop apologizing for being awake. Stop feeling guilty for the light you carry. You were not sent here to blend in. You were sent here to bring alignment. The truth in you is disruptive because it's meant to be. It shakes what isn't stable. It unsettles what's false. And it frees what's trapped. And yes, it will make people talk. It will make them twist your intentions. But your purpose was never to be understood. It was to be felt. Even when they call you cold. Even when they call you manipulative. Even when they call you cruel. Remember this. They are only reacting to the mirror your soul held up to them. The more truth you carry, the more projection you attract. That's not rejection. That's revelation. So let them whisper. Let them rewrite the story if it helps them sleep. You don't have to defend what's divine. The energy you carry speaks louder than explanation ever could. You weren't meant to win their approval. You were meant to trigger their evolution. And one day, long after your silence has faded, they'll realize that you weren't the villain, you were the lesson. That the discomfort they felt around you wasn't manipulation, it was awakening. You made them confront themselves. And not everyone is ready to face that kind of honesty. If this message resonated with you, if even one part of it made your heart exhale in recognition, then I want to ask you to stay connected to this energy. Like this message so others who need it can find it. Share it with someone who's questioning their light in a world that fears authenticity. Leave a comment below and tell me what part spoke to your spirit the most. Your voice might be the sign another chosen one has been waiting for. And if you haven't already, and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's next. Every message here is for those walking the narrow path, the intuitive, the empaths, the healers, the ones who've been misunderstood for seeing too deeply. You are not alone. You are part of a sacred remnant that God is awakening in this generation. And to everyone who continues to support this space, whether through super thanks, prayers, or simply your presence here, thank you. Thank you for listening, for reflecting, and for choosing healing over bitterness. Your energy, your attention, and your faith make this mission possible. Every time you engage, every time you share, every time you take a truth from these words and apply it in your own life, you are spreading light further than you know. You are part of a collective awakening, and that, chosen one, is how the world changes, not through noise, but through frequency. Before you leave, take a moment to breathe. Feel your heart. Let peace return to your body. Whisper to yourself, I'm not manipulative. I'm awakened. Because you are. You didn't break people. You broke patterns. You didn't force change. You embodied truth. And that's why they'll never forget you. They'll carry your energy, your clarity, your reflection, long after you've moved on. You were never just a chapter in their story. You were the turning point. The lesson dressed as love. The awakening disguised as loss. So let this be your closure. You don't need revenge. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove that your heart was pure. Your silence is the proof. Your peace is the evidence. You've done your part. Now walk forward. Chosen one. Walk in grace, not grief. Walk in stillness, not struggle. Let the universe finish what your energy started. And as you go, may your light never dim. May your discernment stay sharp. And may every word spoken against you become a seed for your next blessing. You are not manipulative. You are magnetic. You are not dangerous. You are divine. You are not controlling. You are called. And the same ones who once whispered your name in confusion will one day speak it in gratitude. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for healing. And until we meet again, stay grounded. Stay glowing. And remember this truth. You never manipulated them. You simply triggered what they were too afraid to see. God bless you. Chosen one. I'll see you in the next message.